Hi, I'm Dowling. Welcome to Melbourne Property TV. Tonight we're in Canterbury, one of Melbourne's most exclusive eastern suburbs.
Our panel of experts will look at subdividing and what the implications of heritage overlay are. And we'll give you tips for getting started in property investing.
In order to set themselves up for retirement, many Australians invest in real estate because it's easy to understand than the complexities of the share market. But before you do start a portfolio of investment properties, you need to have a carefully constructed plan.
Ben Kingsley of Empower Wealth Advisory does that for you.
Nowadays, Ben, people are very well educated or knowledgeable about their financial situation. What's the first thing you do when they come in here as a wealth advisor? What do you do with them?
Well, when people come in here, they are looking for advice. They're looking for direction in terms of how they look at their future wealth creation strategies. Our job as wealth advisors is to understand their circumstances, assess their current situation, and then basically advise them on a roadmap forward.
A lot of talk about the fact that people see the market as overvalued and it's pretty soft at the moment. As a long-term investment, is property still a viable option?
Look, there's long-term properties have never fluctuated or had the volatility of other investment assets. So over the longer term, when you're buying the right asset, and let's not forget, property is generalised in so many comments that are made in the marketplace. You're buying one specific property in potentially, there's 8.5 million properties within the Australian market. You can't buy all of them. So when you actually start to drill it down to reliable properties with proven growth drivers and yield drivers, you're ultimately going to see, a better outcome. But you can't just buy any property, and I think that's the point, and I think that's why people come and see us, because they want advice. They want people who have got proven experience and results on the board, and that's why they come to Empower Wealth.
Okay, so where are you advising people to look when it comes, or where are you looking for people for investment properties at the moment?
Once we've done the initial assessment on the client, we can then see their household cash flows. If someone's got really strong cash flows, then we might look in blue chip locations where they can accommodate the shortfall between the incomings and the outgoings on the investment. In terms of, we might have clients come in who have smaller surpluses but are really desperate to start creating wealth for the longer term. So they might need a yield strategy. So we might look at areas like Ballarat as an example, or we might look at, North Geelong, or areas with low vacancy rates but, really strong yields in that sort of late 5s, early 6% range. It is an honest conversation that we have to have with each client. Some of them come in and, want Ferraris and helicopters and get carried away with themselves. But the majority of people have an understanding of where they want to try and end up. They have an understanding of what sort of money they're going to need at retirement. And if they don't, we coach them through that stage. So we work out what's important to them, what type of money they may need, and then we start that whole process. So we work again with the end goal in mind. So when a client comes to see us, they'll do an assessment with us. We'll build a strategy and a roadmap and a plan to take them on that journey. And then ultimately we offer the fulfilment services. So once we know how many properties, so we can build a multi-million-dollar property portfolio strategy for a client, it's then about the execution of that strategy. So they might then engage Cate services or Val services, and we go out and find those properties that meet the brief.
So Cate, you've got a couple's full assessment. You now know where they're headed, where they want to go financially, and it's property investment.
Yes.
What do you do?
Well, the first thing I do is look at the numbers, because I've really got a roadmap to start them on their property investing journey. So I'll have things like yield, maximum spend, desired capital growth returns. Obviously that's not something that we have a crystal ball for, but we look at historical performance over a long time. And then I get started on crafting a strategy for them and going out shopping.
How extensive is your research?
It is extensive, so formulating that strategy is not something I take lightly, and that's the majority of the work. And I think a lot of people assume that a buyer's advocate is just out looking at properties and it's a bit of a glamorous lifestyle, but most of my work is theory, and I've really got to understand where we're shopping, what sort of properties we're targeting, understanding what sort of tenant we're likely to get, and it's got to be the tenant that we want. And once I've worked out all of those parameters, I really do then have quite a good feel for exactly where we're shopping and what sort of property we're getting.
Now, the term wealth advisor, can people play a bit fast and loose with that? Are there people out there who offer golden solutions to people's finances?
It's a good question, Des. What people get confused about is a financial planner may not necessarily be a specialist at property advice. And then there's plenty of people who put on suits as marketeers and sell property as a great investment because there's no regulation or legislation around that.
You mean they don't have your best interests at heart?
Well, you know, it's a very good point. I mean, you know, do I say yes or do I say no? Ultimately, if they're disclosing the outcome of how they're getting paid, that's a very, very good starting point. So if they're saying that their service is a free service to you and, you know, they might be getting paid as ridiculously as $30,000 to $50,000 for every property that they may be referring to particular clients. So the devil's in the detail, and that's where you want to be asking the right questions of a so-called advisor, or look for a qualified property investment advisor under the PIPA umbrella.
What's PIPA?
PIPA is the Property Investment Professionals of Australia, and PIPA's role is a non-profit organisation, and we're trying to improve the professionalism of people inside the industry. And one of our code of conduct components is full disclosure. You know, we're seeing the financial planning industry going through, you know, erasing commissions and soft dollar payments and kickbacks. We're lobbying government to ensure that people are, you know, disclosing to their clients exactly how they're getting paid and making sure that the client's best interests are at heart.